earth element is related to the spleen and the stomach system. That's our digestive system, but it's also the self-nourishing. We're living in this mild fight or flight all the time, which makes us expend more energy. So the heart itself is really what's driving the entire body. It is a pump, but it's also this vortex. It's creating this electromagnetic field. We see the field of the human body moving from the inside to the outside and encompassing the environment. It's what brings us into connection with our actual reason of being on the planet.
Welcome to the Vitalist podcast, where healing meets wonder. This is your space to gain transformative knowledge, deepen your mind-body connection, and awaken your human spirit. If you're ready to connect with your innate potential, embrace life's challenges, and expand what you believe is possible, this is the place. Get ready to slow down, be moved, and live like a true vitalist.
Dr. Alan Chang, a second-generation acupuncturist, having taken over his father's practice 20 years ago in California. Dr. Alan is gentle and intuitive. He quietly tunes into what people need, picking up emotional causes behind what's causing physical symptoms. He can also identify daily lifestyle habits that greatly improve your vitality and well-being. Certified in the art of lotus wave flower essences, Dr. Alan incorporates the bioenergetics of flowers into every single one of his treatments.
I do, actually.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thanks for joining us today on The Vitalist, Dr. Alan. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here in your beautiful space here.
Thank you.
Really great.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit. You took over your dad's practice.
Yeah.
What was one thing that he passed on to you that you didn't necessarily think you would infuse into your work?
I always thought medicine was hard. You had to really do something and really put your effort into it to make something happen. And when I had a chance to really follow him and just shadow him for the 3 months before he passed away in 2002, but it was the most amazing time. And I would watch him go into rooms and he would just talk to hi, Mrs. Johnson, how are you today? Oh, did you have a nice trip? And you did this. And he would just go around. He would might do an adjustment. And then he would just start to do acupuncture. And he would just put him in and they would just have conversation. And then he would say, okay, great. Well, I'll be back in a little bit. And he'd walk out. And I was like, oh no, my dad's a total hack. He didn't do anything. And then I went and did our clinical studies, the practicals, and I realized, oh, my dad is the best acupuncturist that I've seen so far.
Wow.
Because he did it so effortlessly. And it was actually not a trying to do. He just did it and let them be. And he got very good results. And I was very lucky to be able to observe that and then just to be able to bring that into my practice of, okay, it doesn't have to be a very strong simulation so that people feel like, oh my God, I can feel something. So it can just be, oh, you're relaxed. And now we have so much more studies about when we are relaxed, our parasympathetic just comes into play and all of the cellular regeneration functions work. Yeah, so I would say that would be the biggest gift that my dad gave me.
In our practice, we always say it's like power versus force. I feel like a lot of people think we need to use a lot of force to make a change, but when you can tune into the innate intelligence or the power within the body, this tiniest little input can make such a huge ripple and change in the physical body, but the mental, emotional, spiritual.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. So if someone's new to acupuncture and new to the meridian system, my understanding is that it's very energetic in nature.
Yes.
How do you explain that to someone who has no concept of energy being in their body?
In Chinese medicine, the most used metaphors is really using the body as an environment in nature. So, for example, there's the 5 elements, and then we can relate that to, say, like a mountain. In the mountain, then there's going to be rainfall, and the rainfall will represent the water element. And then with the rainfall, then it would actually have the wood or all the plants actually grow. And then there's also a lot of trees that actually require fire to actually burn them down or to actually mitigate and to create more fertilizer to be able to grow more. And then we can talk about like the trees and not necessarily petrification, but you can actually see that's where the minerals or the metals then actually are derived. And so you see this whole movement of a natural function and relationship between environments and our body. And that's where I would say is the easiest way to understand how energy works. Because if we go out into nature and we observe a whole natural element, it's maybe hard to understand or to see or to feel where the energetics actually lie. But I think most people, when you go into nature, you feel something different. Like there's something like, oh, I actually feel much better. Oh, I feel good. And what is that exactly? That I would say is the energetic, which can also be the entire capacity or the entire holistic environment of that we actually feel in our body. So if we bring that back into just our body, into a microcosm of the entire earth as a single organism, right? Like we're like humans, we are one of the cells, one of the many cells on the planet Earth. Now we have cell phones, so it's a little bit easier to use this as kind of an analogy. We just took a picture and then we're going to send ourselves a selfie to each other. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
we just want to remember this moment. If we remember when we used to use film, that took a whole process of actually taking a film, having the light actually come on to create the film, and then going into the dark room and then actually making a print, and then we could send it to somebody or give it to somebody. Now we just do it digitally. So that's a lot of information that's being sent on an invisible pathway. But for sure, there's information being sent. How does that happen? That's how I can make an analogy to how the energetic meridians work. Meaning, what is the vocabulary that each person or each individual has to be able to make sense of it? Do they actually have it? Like
Yeah.
for me, I don't know how to use vocabulary to describe the bits that actually transfer through Wi-Fi, like invisibly. But I can describe the changes in the energetics of a meridian in a person by looking at how their pulses feel and also looking at how their whole internal environment changes.
Yeah. So it's almost like the meridians are an energetic blueprint for your development and unfolding.
And I would say that I really like that because if everything is in a flow and there's no static, everything is in a dynamic movement, then it is a blueprint because it's constantly changing. And even like an architectural blueprint, it's an idea, but when you actually build it, there's a lot more different types of inputs that you have to change. And we can say it affects the entire cellular, neurological, and, more of the cardiovascular muscle skeletal system in totality.
One of the stories that we love sharing in our practice is conception and how there's a burst of electricity or that flash of light the moment of conception. And then that one cell turns into 2, into 4, into 8, and 16, so on and so forth. And this energy builds a body, right? And before there's organs, or before there's like our brain and our nervous system and our heart, there is that energetic blueprint. I'm curious, do you know what meridian is first to show up? And what does that say about how we're supposed to use this energy to not just evolve physically, but spiritually?
So in Chinese medicine, there's a meridian called the Chong meridian, which means actually the middle, or we can say the interior. And so there's the Ren, which is in the front of the body, and the Du, which is in the back of the body. And so it's not really on like imprinted. It's not like imprinted on the skin. It's not like a tattoo. The movement of water slightly below the surface, or if you even if you look at a stream moving down, there's an indentation of where the path of the stream or the creek. So I would say that that would be more of the ren and the do. And the Chong meridian, which is interior, would be like water that is like an aquifer, like something that is underground. There's an underground spring that is actually moving through. So the Chong meridian, as it moves through interiorly through the body, is really the central meridian, or where everything begins to come from. So when we're talking about like the cell mitosis, there's like this, there's the axis, and then they kind of
Yeah.
break into two,
Right.
four,
But they always migrate to the middle.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's some energetic force that works from the beginning. Now, then we can talk about, well, is it like electromagnetic in a sense? What is it that brings the energy in? Or like what we're seeing more now is if we can actually observe a torus or toroidal field where it looks kind of like a donut, right? So there's a central axis where the energy is moving, you say on a vertical axis, but then it goes all the way out and then under and back in. Then that creates a very stable and self-generating field. If we're looking at it from that perspective, it's very similar to what Chinese medicine talks about the Chong meridian. Of then from there, then we can talk about all the different meridians moving throughout the entire body. But also we can talk about how we see the field of the human body moving from the inside to the outside and encompassing the environment.
We're giving energy, but we're also receiving energy.
Correct.
And I think that that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I feel like in our culture, I feel like we often forget that. We overgive our energy, or maybe we're taking too much energy. So it's creating this balance.
If we're not living or creating in a balance, then there's no way to maintain that. Unfortunately, that's what I noticed too, is that there's a lot of giving too much or taking too much because it's non-sustainable. It's kind of like if we were talking about the torus field of like the central axis, and there's energy that's going out over the top and then along the sides like a donut and then back in. That's a self-generating field. But if it gets lopsided and it's getting pulled off on one side, either getting pulled off or given, then it offsets the balance. That the work that we're both doing is to allow each individual to find that perfect balance of their own energetic field so that all of the physiology can actually come into balance. And when our own physiology comes into balance, then our emotional psychology can also come into balance. And then from there, then we have the brain neurotransmitters and everything comes to more of a balance. And then we can actually, and this is more from Chinese medicine and Taoism, we can actually communicate with our spirit. Or when they talk about heaven and Tian, it's really what is outside of ourselves. All of this movement that is constantly happening that is in relationship to us.
Can you talk a little bit about the 5 elements? I feel like each element's related to an organ, it's related to a time of day, it's related to an emotion, and you're seeing this as a system creating patterns that you can make meaning out of. Can you break this down a little bit for our people?
Say you go up to Flagstaff and there's snow coming down and there's like a ski resort, and when there's snow packed, then it melts into the rivers and the creeks. River and the creeks go down a little bit further lower, like below the timberline, so there's actually trees. In the trees, then there's all of the animals, the insects, and then like humans can be sustained there. And then there's all the minerals that are like the metals that are there. And then there's also this idea of, we can talk about fire on the plant, on the ground, but also the fire from the sun. So actually being able to absorb the heat element to be able to balance the cold. So we'll break it down a little bit. I'll start with the earth element because a lot of times that's where I think everything begins. And the reason is that the earth element is related to the spleen and the stomach system. And so that's our digestive system, but it's also the self-nourishing system. And it's also our first contact to the outside world, moving into the internal world. So this is kind of goes back to we are what we eat. When you can't nourish yourself, everyone becomes exhausted, and the ground itself or the earth itself becomes exhausted, then there is not a self-nourishing aspect that comes to replenish. So if we're not able to nourish our spleen and the stomach in the earth element, then we're not able to create blood, hemoglobin, and from
Yeah.
all the micronutrients.
Right.
And that would be related to the heart system and the small intestines. And so, now we see more and more there's this gut that really is so much of our immune system, and how it relates to the creation of all of the different parts of our blood fluids.
Hmm.
It's less of a specialization that we see currently with the medical model,
Yes.
rather than saying, okay, so is a cardiology problem,
Right.
so, as a neurologist, I'm not going to look at that.
Exactly. Everything's so siloed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like super hyper specialized.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great for emergencies,
Yeah.
but it's really terrible for creating health.
Can you share a little bit
Mhm.
about how emotions relate to the 5 elements?
So there's emotions that are related to all of the different 5 elements, which also in turn are related to the organ systems. I'll start again with the earth, since we just began there. The emotions that are with the stomach or the spleen are very much like worry, overthinking. When we're doing cognitive functions in the brain, then it's actually using a lot of the energy in that sense. And a lot of, like, when I was doing my master's program, like, everyone was taking spleen tonics because we just run ourselves kind of ragged,
Right.
and we're not getting enough nutrients in to try to process everything that's going on in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
Our brain can process a certain number of information, and then it kind of cuts off, and our eyes can bring that information in. So if it's cut short really, really quickly, say, like, what we see, like about 6 to 10 seconds all the time, that is an activation of our sympathetic system constantly, right? So we're living in this mild, fight or flight all the time, which makes us expend more energy. And then it also disrupts and turns off our digestive functioning, because, like, when we have cortisol surge, we don't want to actually have all the digestive enzymes, pancreatic enzymes, hydrochloric acid. We don't need to digest our food, because we need to fight or run. Right. So what I find for ourselves is that on a psychological level, we're being rewarded to be like multitaskers. So we're actually being actively rewarded to constantly be in our sympathetic system. And that is teaching us to put ourselves in a situation where we are constantly blocking or degrading our ability to heal.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who comes to see you for
Mhm.
acupuncture, but you are sending them home? What exercise do you send them home with?
One of the most underrated is simply to take a walk. Take a walk outside. And what we see more and more now is that if you take a walk in the early morning, the the shorter wavelengths of the light that's coming in the morning actually are very, very good for creating more vitamin D simulation in the body. And vitamin D, as this miracle molecule, I mean, it's utilized in so much of the immune function, and on all types of different functions in our body. I mean, it's also neuroprotective, and then all of this. And then that movement is probably some of the best. And we're all become much more static, looking at our screens, and like standing still or sitting down in desks for so many people, unfortunately, that it's really just starting there. Yes, there's a lot of specific things that we can get into, but it depends on who it is. It depends on, okay, can somebody first, most people can just take a walk. That's the easiest. But can we actually do exercises like qigong or tai chi? What is the best one for each person? And that's where I like to do it more personalized. Yeah.
Let's talk about the heart, because I
Please.
feel like we live in a culture where the heart is just seen as this pump that circulates blood. And I know traditional Chinese medicine has a very different view of the heart.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about that?
The heart really is looked at as the emperor. The emperor meaning that its job is to overview and take care of all of the citizens. So the heart itself is really what's driving the entire body. So now, as you're saying, it is a pump, but it's also this vortex. And so when it's actually pumping, it's creating this electromagnetic field, and that electromagnetic field shifts and changes all of the actual cells themselves, because they have this electric capacity around them. Maybe they're electrical capacitors, actually. Yeah, but it makes sense because they're alive. When we take them out and we study them, they're outside of their actual environment, and they're outside of that closed system. And so, what are we actually observing when we take it out of the body? If we're looking at the heart and how are we taking care of ourselves on all the different levels in terms of how we're looking at our spirit or our path forward, or how we're moving through our journey in life, how does that relate to our mental well-being, our emotional, psychological level? And then how does that relate to our physiology? So I think we can look at all three levels for all the elements, but the heart really is the most important because it's what brings us into connection with our actual reason of being on the planet, our actual idea or knowing of what this journey is that we're actually taking. And if we don't pay attention to it, then it shuts down. And when the heart shuts down, our entire physiology shuts down. I've worked with many patients, men who will have gone through a difficulty, whether it's a divorce or a child losing their child at a young age, and there's heart attacks that actually happen. There's also lung cancer that actually happens, that may not be correlated with smoking or other like asbestos or something like that, which my father actually, he went through quite a lot of difficulty and was orphaned, and he actually had lung cancer, which was like, oh, well, we don't know why, and so this begins to make more sense to me. And with women, I also find that there's breast cancer that actually comes from unresolved emotional difficulties or traumas. You know, what what I hope that we can all find and be able to bring to ourselves and to our patients is, can we actually take a moment to be able to recognize what we need in ourselves? Because if we can recognize what we need with the smaller symptoms, then we don't have to go through an entire physiological breakdown.
So it's what I hear you saying is, in our life, we experience so much mental, emotional impact. I think they think of trauma, they think of, oh, I haven't been in a car accident, I haven't smoked. Why would this be showing up in my physical lungs? So there is this essence of unresolved emotional distress being stored in the body, and we're not taking the time to acknowledge it and sit with it and process it. So how do you see these emotions being stored in the body minus the symptoms? Is there certain patterns you're looking for? What are like the early signs that someone could say, wow, a symptom is showing up in my body? What a gift. What am I storing in this symptom if there's no like physical mechanism of injury?
The physical manifestations is kind of downstream. And what can we notice by ourselves? I think it's sometimes a little bit difficult, and I think it's much easier for somebody else, like a close friend or a practitioner to actually notice. Because oftentimes we guard and we take care of ourselves by trying to repress or to shield it. And that shielding is useful so that we're not constantly going through this kind of traumatic experience, but we try to mask the memory, so it may be hard for us to tell. Like a loss of memory, for example. Like I'm thinking of a male patient, and he said, well, there's like chunks of my childhood that I just don't remember. If there are parts of us that and we can even say parts of us that may seem numb, to look at that, to me, is the best way to be able to begin to uncover and unpeel. And with acupuncture, working with the different levels of acupuncture, we can work with unlocking the energetic blockages.
So when you're working with these people and if we are in a disconnected state from our body, what is let's say a body scan exercise that you would share with someone to reconnect, and especially to reconnect to the wisdom? Because I think something's in our body and it's uncomfortable. We're just going to fight it or resist it. So how do you sit with it as a gift and do that body scan?
Oftentimes when a client is on the table, I'll have them visualize standing under a warm waterfall, like in
beautiful.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that you feel like kind of on the top of your head and just like moving down through your shoulders, your chest, your back, your abdomen, down your hips, down your legs, like you're standing in a pool of warm water. Yeah, because when we're visualizing this flow of like warm water going over us, we feel very comfortable. When we feel comfortable, we actually relax. When we can relax both of our mind, our muscle structures, which then allows the neurology to relax, then what may be caught within our muscle and neurological systems can suddenly be dislodged in a sense, or let go of, so that it may actually surface. And some simply just move away. Uh, but that's one way, very easy way to imagine standing under a warm waterfall. Or even if you're laying down, you just imagine it's still kind of coming down from the top of your head, moving all the way down in your body, and that will help to clean. It's like in many cultures, like in Japan. That's one way to allow things to move up. But a way to do a body scan is lying down or sitting down, to just feel and be aware of the top of your head. And it's very much like thinking of a waterfall, but just moving slowly and just being able to see. And just, it's almost like having like a silk cloth move kind of through over the surface of your skin first, to get a sense of what may be caught on the surface. That's like a silk cloth going over your skin at first. And then you can go a little bit deeper, almost like you're like a ultrasound, or so if you think of like a beam going through your body, so that you can actually work interiorly also. Notice it, and then just kind of keep moving on. And so the idea is to be able to notice, but not get stuck, and then keep moving on. Connect with the body, using, I would say, the right side of our brain, and balancing with the left. So the right side, because it's a visualization. And then the left is to take note, but then also to let it go and not hold on to it. So it kind of jumps back between the left and the right, like this.
So when someone comes to you,
yes,
and they just came from their Western medical primary care, and all their blood tests and labs and imaging, everything looks perfect, what do you see that doesn't show up on any of those tests?
One thing that I would say is, as we both know, especially with lab tests, blood tests, that it's really just a bell curve of that particular lab, and they're looking at pathological ranges. So it's really relating that to them. It's great that nothing shows up. That's fantastic. Okay, so what do you feel is actually happening? What do you feel is going on? And then working softly around it, and not necessarily talking about how the emotions get stuck in the body, but allowing them just to talk and relate to what may be happening. For example, if somebody goes, well, I've had like indigestion for like a really long time. Like, oh, okay. Well, when was that from? Oh, it was probably like 2015. What happened in 2014? What happened in 2013? Yeah, that's when like all my kids were old enough and they went away to college. Oh, okay. And that sense of worry, again, can be related to how the spleen, the stomach in the earth element or the digestive system is impacted.
Right.
Also, like when we worry, we tend to hold a little bit of abdominal tension.
Yes. So how do you explain to this person that putting a needle in their ankle or their foot or their wrist is going to make a change in their spleen? Like, how does a needle, from someone who thinks about their body as parts and more of like a machine, how do you explain a needle so far from an organ making an impact throughout the entire system?
Well, it's like flipping on a switch. It's like, well, like how is it that we can flip on a switch over there and this light comes on?
Sure.
There's a travel in this movement. So, okay, it could be the neurological system, but it's also more than that because we're also talking about the relative connectivity of all the cells moving around it, also in the cardiovascular system, changing the activation potentials of, like, say, a light switch to make it really simple.
Yeah.
But it also is as complex and as simple as being able to fill up the tire in a car so that you can actually drive it again.
Yeah.
Like why is it that when one tire is down or you have a flat, you can't drive the whole car?
Yeah.
Like, that's dumb.
Yeah. Right.
But it happens.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you change the tire, fill it up, then everything is fine and you can actually drive again.
Well, wrapping up here, Alan, what is, if you could leave everything with an understanding of their energy system, like what would that one thing be?
Our energy systems are completely wrapped in everybody else's. All of those that we love, all of those that we may not love, and the entire environment. If we think of the earth as a single organism, if we think of the earth as an organism, then we are a part of that, and we have a specific part to play with it. And then we have this wider perspective of our whole energetic system that we are critically and really uniquely able to affect everyone around us and also ourselves. When we are in balance, we get to balance our entire environment. When our environment is balanced, all of society is balanced. When society is balanced, the whole planet then can be balanced. Yeah. And that really is what I feel would be the most important.
Well, where can people connect with you? Where can they find you?
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm at the SAN Center, SAN Center, PHX.com. And that's the easiest way to be able to find me.
Well, thank you. I know you have a lot of offerings there.
Yes.
And people connect with you for flower essences. They can connect for acupuncture and continue the teachings that you so graciously share.
Yeah. And so usually once or twice a month, I'm also doing classes, community classes, and also we'll wrap in some Tai Chi and Qigong with them. And so the easiest way to find the specific dates is to look on the San Center Phoenix website.
Beautiful.
And then would love to see everyone coming in.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending the morning with us.
Well, it was my pleasure.
We really appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, share it with a friend. For more conversations filled with awe and wonder, be sure to subscribe to the Vitalist podcasts. Till next time.